For those of us who do election petitions, we all know that election petitions are sui generis. They belong to their own class. They are neither strictly civil matters or criminal matters. They are specialized, just like issues of admiralty, fundamental right are specialized. They are not, the normal court rules do not guide them, their trial. So you find a lawyer who has not conducted one trial at the tribunal. He does not know the principles on which issues are settled in election matters. He begins to sit on appeal over the Supreme Court pronouncements. I'll give you an example. We have always said that the law must be certain. Law must be certain. What has the Supreme Court done in the various cases they have adjudicated on in the past 2-3 weeks that are not based on settled principles of law? Number one is that issues of nomination of candidates of any political party are pre-election matters. It has been long settled. Number two is that anybody who alleges that there's overvoting in a polling unit or that things went wrong in a polling unit during election, you must call witnesses polling booth by polling booth. I remember this principle was actually canvassed in the case of Buhari against Obasanjo years back, over 10 years back, when one Mr. Lawrence sought to lead evidence concerning over 1,000 polling units. And the Supreme Court said, no, you cannot be a spiritual witness. On that day of election, you were only in one polling unit. Why would you come to this court and you begin to give evidence concerning over 1,000 polling units? And so when today the Supreme Court gives a judgment based on that principle, somebody who falls on the wrong side will say they are compromised. Of late, we are talking about the card reader. Most of the governorship election judgments that came from the Supreme Court are based on card reader. Let somebody say, Supreme Court said card reader is not in the Electoral Act, and yet they gave judgment to Mr. A based on card reader. Then I'll know they are compromised. But all their judgments are based on the fact that Section 49 of the Electoral Act says how accreditation should go on in polling unit, that the INEC official should come with a register. And when a voter comes, his card is collected, details checked in the voter's register. If the details are there, it is ticked, and he is allowed to vote. And suddenly, card reader comes. And the court says no. The card reader is good. It's a good innovation. But the problem is that it is not in the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act still contains Section 49, which rules the way we should deal with accreditation. And so if you hinge your case on a card reader, you automatically will lose your case. And that's what has happened in all the cases. And there was no exception. The APC government, the PDP government, the same measure was given. So when people who do not know these issues begin to talk, I shudder, especially lawyers. The law says that if you want to challenge nomination of a political party, of a candidate by a political party, you must be a candidate, an aspirant in that primary. The case of PDP, Silva against PDP, MNK against PDP, quite a lot of cases, Okachukwu against PDP, a long line of cases, Supreme Court has settled it. And tomorrow, somebody comes and then the Supreme Court says, in line with that our judgment, we say that you do not have a locus here. And somebody says they are compromised. For God's sake, let's get out of these issues. Let's leave politicians talk. Lawyers, if you want to comment, you go and read the law, election petition law, and then you will be well equipped. And it is also sad where lawyers who should know begin to annotate the judgment of the Supreme Court. If you desecrate the Supreme Court and the judiciary, where do you run to? So I sincerely believe that we are playing to the gallery. Many of these lawyers, be them senior advocates, be them senior lawyers, many of them play to the gallery because they do not handle election matters. Most of them have not been briefed as of right, to come to any election tribunal to canvass the case of whether the petitioner or the respondent. So why would they annotate the judgment of the Supreme Court?
Do you think
they do it in bad faith, and it is wrong.
Do you think we need further amendments to the Constitution or the Electoral Act for any perceived impediments to administration of justice to be taken off?
I sincerely believe that there's need for amendment. There's need for amendment. I'll give you an example. If I've spoken on election matters, and I believe the issue of card reader should actually come into the Electoral Act to at least dilute the effect of Section 49 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended. And then you now go to the laws relating to fight against corruption. I'll give you an example. Section 293 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 provides that a magistrate can actually sign remand warrant in a matter that he does not have jurisdiction to adjudicate. That is a law that we must revisit and look at with a view to aligning it with the constitutional provision. The Constitution tells you that you can detain a suspect. That is Section 35. Section 35, subsection 1C. 1C says you can detain a suspect for 24 hours if you suspect that he has committed crime or there's reasonable belief that he has committed crime. It goes to subsection 4 and says that in doing that, if you want to detain him for over 24 hours, you have to do that, but you have to charge him to court within a reasonable time. Subsection 5 determines what reasonable time is. That if the person is detained within 40 kilometers radius of a location where you have a court of competent jurisdiction, then you have to get a remand from that particular court. And so you now find out that a magistrate, in the case of Abuja, you detain a suspect in EFCC custody. You go to a magistrate court to now regularize your action. You have not asked yourself, is there no federal high court here? Is there no high court of FCT? Subsection 5 says those courts are the courts that can do that remand because they are competent. So we need to revisit our laws. In saying that we are not doing well as judiciary, we should look at the tool they have. Go and revisit those laws, and as soon as possible, get them to conform with what is needed. But rather than go and do that, you look at the legislature. Every day, if PDP is not fighting APC, APC is fighting PDP. And I must tell you that a friend of mine said it, and I believe it. APC was not ready for governance. PDP was not ready to play opposition. So they are fighting within themselves, and nobody is moving forward. So let us learn to know that even the legislature should be able to put down laws that will help anti-corruption fight move on smoothly. And that is my take.
All right, we'll hope that they will pick up on that, and very interesting place to leave it. Thank you for all your thoughts today, Mr. Emeka Etiaba, a senior advocate of Nigeria.